Hi, this is Jeff Garton, and this is the presentation I prepared for the June 7 event sponsored by the Missouri Association of Workforce Development. The focus of the presentation is the new Job Seeker Success Mindset Training, which we refer to as the next generation of job readiness training, and the military version of that, which we call Vet Power Training. And why we refer to this as the next generation is because the focus of learning is not on the mechanics of how to look for jobs. By that I am referring to the resume, cover letter, networking, or interview skills. But instead, the focus of learning is how to develop the mental skills to persevere until jobs can be found and perform well despite all of the emotional turmoil associated with the difficult job market or other personal difficult circumstances. And employers who are aware of this training refer to it as performance improvement training, but for the unemployed. It's beneficial to job hunters, but also it's beneficial to employers given its focus on performance improvement. Our objective with this training is to address the issues of job search apathy and discouragement that, if left unattended, could lead to prolonged unemployment, potentially homelessness, or in the case of veterans, the possibility of suicide, which is just at a horrible rate currently. So this is the focus and objective of our mindset training. The training, the Illinois Department of Employment Security delivers this through their virtual classroom, which is available at no cost to all state residents, but also we're encouraging all the workforce partners to use this content, to download content from the online training and use it to supplement their online learning with classroom learning. The course, this is the actual delivery portal. The course is hosted using cloud technology, so a large volume of people can take the course. It's professionally narrated. We've made the content very exciting and fast-moving by the use of multimedia tools. It includes, in addition to coaching exercises and custom articles, it also includes real-world story videos, and also trainees can download self-hypnosis audios in modules 2 and 3 to help them practice in the development of their new mindset skills. The course, if you wanted to scan through it, takes about an hour, but if you really get into the learning, it could take up to 7 hours of seat time. But what we're learning from people who take the course is they use it on an as-needed basis 24/7. So if they need an emotional boost, if they've gotten rejected, they can go on course and get just a boost to get back up on their feet and go again. Or if they're planning an interview, they can get on there and get some fresh content to help them plan. Again, inspire the emotions to get them up and going without any low confidence or anxiety. The annual cost to maintain this course online, to make it free for all residents and for use by all the workforce partners, is less than the cost of regular and extended unemployment benefits paid to just one person. And so the state of Illinois is realizing a return on investment every time somebody gets placed after someone takes this course. So we're very pleased about that. And as budgets are shrinking and staff are shrinking to help the unemployed, this course is still clicking along, and it is very well received. People who take this course say that they can't stop talking about it because they realize an immediate benefit to themselves as a result of taking this course, not just for their career, but for their marriage, their relationships, their finances, their health. And they're saying this has been very helpful and they'd like to see more of it. Our plan with the course is to update the content at least twice annually with more story videos as we get them, and of course more articles. So the course is actually a growing work in progress. Mindset training, what is it? We're very cautious to make people aware that this is not power positive thinking. It's not positive mental attitude. It's not wishful thinking or anything like that. This is actually how to think intentionally to self-regulate the best emotions to achieve the best performance regardless of whatever difficulties you may be confronting while going through your unemployment period. It's what we refer to as success despite circumstances. If I had to put a label on it, it would be self-empowerment training. And the focus is the power of learning how to think non-negatively to succeed despite circumstances. And it's the same kind of thinking we tell people is that got us from Kitty Hawk, North Carolina to the moon, when some scientists at the time were saying, well, man will never fly, we'll never get to the moon, you're wishful thinking, it'll never happen. And it did. And it did because of the right mindset involved in the scientists. And so we're turning off thoughts like, they won't want me, I'll never get that job, they won't hire me, I'm not qualified. Those are the thoughts we're turning off and turning on non-negative thoughts, thoughts which are realistic and optimistic to enhance, improve performance, results, and impressions. Okay, this is me, and I just wanted to give you a picture of myself here doing this. Before I go deeper into this mindset topic, I wanted to tell you a little story that sort of sets the tone for the rest of the presentation. And this is what I would have done live with a flip chart. The reason I got into this is after graduating from college in West Virginia. I grew up on a farm in West Virginia, and I was the first of 7 kids to graduate, and I couldn't get a job. And it was the most embarrassing, shameful experience I'd ever had. I made a commitment I would go back to graduate school, get a master's in business with an emphasis in human resources, and I would learn what it is that gives some people an advantage. And while in graduate school, it took a headhunter job to begin learning recruiting. And that's the experience that got me my first job out of grad school with Miller Brewing Company. I stayed there for 16 years. And then I was transferred to Kraft Foods, their sister company in Chicago. And I stayed there for about 21 years. And I made a decision to leave. And at that point, I thought I had learned pretty well what it is that gives some people an advantage. And I wanted to do further research in different environments based on what I had learned. I also wanted to start writing a book. And so to make that transition possible for me, I made a proposition to my managers there at Kraft. I said, if you give me 5 assignments anywhere in the world, I'll fill them for you at a flat fee. That would help me get my start as a new entrepreneur. They agreed, and I took off. And I collected a couple of other startup companies that I could help as an HR person as well. Life was good. I made the jump. I was proud of what I did, and now I was going through the process of applying everything I learned and develop my theories and write a book about it. And then 9/11 happened, and Kraft told me we're not going to be able to fulfill our contract. We're going to have to renege on that. And so, at the time, I thought, oh my gosh, I was a single parent at the time. I had 2 kids at home that lived with me full time, a daughter and a son, and she was about to go into high school. And I was afraid. And so what I asked people, how do you think I was feeling? How do you think I was feeling at that point in time? What were some of the emotions I was experiencing? From my point of view, over here, I had fear, worry. I was doubtful now that nobody was hiring. I was angry. Why did I give up a perfectly good job and high income and free food, free beer, free cigarettes? We were owned by Philip Morris companies. Why did I do that? I felt ashamed. I felt poor. I felt miserable. And I didn't know how long this effect would last. I got down on my knees and I said a prayer. And I said, look, I'm not asking for anything I'm not willing to work for. I'll do the work. Just please help me get some business. I can't survive without an income here. I need to put food on the table, pay the bills and the mortgage and everything else. Help me out. Ring. I got a phone call immediately after saying that prayer. And I said, hello. And the guy on the line said, Mr. Garton, I'm with the investment firm that handled your profit sharing and your stock options. And I have an apology to make. We made a terrible error when you left. We forgot to process your stock options. We owe you some money. Well, at that time, Philip Morris stock had been under water for years. I didn't expect much. I said, okay, you want an address to send this to, or how can I help you? And he says, well, actually, Mr. Garton, this is a check for $75,000. I said, excuse me? Did you say $75? He says, no, this is $75,000. I said, oh my gosh. And I realized, man, there must be a God. There really is a God. I prayed for it. I got it. Wow. And I instantaneously, I felt my shoulders back, my chin up. I felt good. I felt proud. And so now I ask people, how do you think I feel? How do you think I felt now? Well, I felt confident. I felt enthused. I felt very proud. I felt happy. I felt joy. I felt optimistic. I can do this. This is giving me a little start again. And I felt rich. I felt rich. And feeling this way, suddenly I didn't have a care in the world. I just went out and I started making calls, knocking on doors. And I started pulling in business. I started bringing in clients, even it was post 9/11. And within 3 months, I practically doubled that $75,000. Ring. Jeff Garton, Career Contentment, how can I help you? Mr. Garton, it's me again at the investment firm. I said, oh, he's probably got more money for me. And he said, Mr. Garton, we made a horrible mistake. You left the company before the cutoff on the last stock disbursement. And Mr. Garton, did you cash that check? And I thought, come to think of it, no, I didn't. I forgot all about it. And he says, well, Mr. Garton, you're going to have to send that back to us. And I said, no problem. I'll send it right now. But let me make a picture of it first, which I did. I have a photocopy. And here's the point. In moving from the bads column here to the right column, it was on the basis, the only thing that changed was my mindset. I really didn't have that money. In fact, I never even cashed the check. It was how I was viewing my circumstances that changed. It was my mindset that took me to that other side of this column. And I want to talk about that mindset now and how to achieve it. So keep this story in mind. I hope you enjoyed that mindset story. It's a true story, and I use it to help, again, illustrate just the power of the right mindset. What I was doing, and I didn't know it at the time, but I was turning off the strain in my life and turning on greater ease by simply improving how I think. I had changed my thinking without realizing I'd even done it. I had created ease, or what we call, I enlivened my spirit so my body can soar. And you're going to hear me talk about this a couple times today. Enliven your spirit so that your body will soar. That has tremendous meaning to a person's survivability. You can see here, these people here are watching a 3D movie. But look, they all are like you and I. They have troubles in their lives and so forth, but where are their troubles? Where are their sadness? Where's their sorrow? What they've done here, mindset, is nothing more than a way of thinking. What they've done to enjoy this movie, they've turned off the strain in their lives and they turned on the ease by controlling what they think. We all do this, and without realizing that we are doing it. And here's what happens. After we get done watching this movie, we head out to our car, and before we turn the ignition, our mind is already dwelling on unpaid bills, troubles, problems that we have to confront, things that we'd rather not think about. But it starts flooding our mind just automatically because we're not controlling that ease. We're just allowing ourselves to think automatically. And that's what we're trying to help people to understand. You can control this. You can create as much ease as you please. I did research among 300 jobless people to help in the development of this online training course, the Job Seeker Success Mindset course. And the ground rule I had was, if I was going to interview, you had to have recently got your job within 3 days of my talking with you. And I did these interviews at these networking events where these people would come back after getting a job. The ground rule, they had those meetings where if you got a job, you'd have to bring a box of donuts and share it with the rest of the group. And they would ask questions. How did you get your job? And inevitably, among these 300 people, they all about said the same thing, but using different words. The first thing they said was, I really don't know. It sort of felt like the job found me. Like the planets were aligned or something. I can't explain it. But as they told their stories again and again, this is what came out. They described 4 tipping points. Tipping points are the little things you do that make a big difference. They described 4 tipping points for how the job found them, or how they created ease for that process to work. The first tipping point was, you have to know what you desire. Not what job you need or want, but what job do you desire? What are you most passionate about? And the next thing is, after you figure that out, is you have to believe that you're going to get it. You have to see it, feel it, taste it, touch it, whatever. Apply all your senses to believing it's going to happen. And if you do a good job with that, the next thing you do is you have to turn off that negative self-talk and manage against doubts. Continue to believe firmly that it's going to happen as if it was meant to be. And if you do a job with these 3 tipping points, the 4th and final tipping point is other people begin helping you. They want to help you. And the reason they want to help you is now that you've followed these tipping points, they see your improved attitude. You have better capabilities. You're getting results. You have favorable. They want to put their reputation on backing you. Now, here's the beauty of these 4 tipping points. If you don't know what you desire, nobody can help you. You can't even help yourself. And if you don't believe you're going to get a job, why would anyone want to believe in you? And if you have doubts, they're going to have doubts about you. And so here, these first 3 tipping points became the first 3 modules of the online Job Seeker Success Mindset training course. And the 4th and final module has to deal with staffing etiquette to ensure that others are willing to help you. And so what these 4 tipping points do is help to increase, on the one side, the first 3 tipping points help to increase your discoverability, and the 4th and final tipping point helps to increase your likability. And this is what employers call right fit in chemistry. And so that's what we're talking about, the right mindset to achieve right fit in chemistry in the minds of employers. So let me ask you, here we see a little countdown clock on the left. What's the primary function of your brain? Give it some thought, and I want you to write down your answer now. What do you think is the primary function of your brain? And the answer is, your brain keeps you alive. And then the body, as I like to say, the body plods along trying to keep up with the Joneses. Now let me explain this. Who's the boss in your life? Is it you or is it your brain? I want you to think about that. Who's the boss? You or your brain? Or another way of saying that is, from where do your thoughts, intentions, and consciousness originate? From where? What do you think? Well, if you don't know, scientists don't know. In fact, they're split. Some of them say that your consciousness comes from inside the brain. Others say, no, that's not the case. It comes from the mind. Now, the problem with this is the fact that if they do brain surgery on you, if they cut open your skull, they can find your brain, but they can't find your mind. And so this is an ongoing debate. Here's the arguments. The brain scientists say that the consciousness comes from chemicals from inside the brain, okay, endorphins. But here's the problem. That theory goes kaput during periods of unconsciousness when your brain functioning ceases, okay? Unexplained is how is it that some people report enhanced periods of consciousness and lucid memories after flatline EEG? No blood flow to the brain, or death. How is this explainable if consciousness occurs in the brain? And here's where the mind scientists come in, science of the mind. They say that consciousness exists apart from the brain, or what they say is non-local to the body. Your mind is non-local to the body or brain. And we now have 4 decades of research involving over 16 million of children and adult near-death experiences in just the United States to confirm this. And these on average, there are 750 near-death experiences reported inside just the United States. And they're happening all over the world. And now some of these top medical gurus, neuroscientists, cardiologists, and so forth are saying they are predicting that science of the mind is going to be the next frontier for improving human health. Here's a quote from a research psychologist. He says that any biological explanations or even psychological explanations or neurological explanations for near-death experiences are inadequate. The burden of proof now has shifted to those who insist that consciousness cannot possibly exist apart from the brain. So let me ask you, since this is no longer taboo, which is the easiest for you to control when searching for jobs, your brain or your mind? Trying to control your brain is like trying to control your pancreas, your heart, your liver, your spleen. So really, the mind is much more easier for you to control. The mind is the boss, and that's what we're going to talk about. So from where do your thoughts and consciousness originate? From the mind, that non-local you. The body's just a chassis, okay? That's the local you. And here's what they say. Consciousness arises outside the body from the mind, and as a result, your brain, therefore, is a transceiver. A transceiver just like these transceivers. Let me explain this. When you talk to your friend, and by the way, Dr. Pim van Lommel is a world-renowned cardiologist. He lives in the Netherlands, and he was one of the panelists recently here in the United States in Madison, Wisconsin, to talk about science of the mind, and just this year. And he says, for example, consciousness is like an electromagnetic wave, and your brain is a processor. It facilitates those wave interpretations, much like a telephone, a TV, or radio. For example, when you speak to a friend on the telephone, they're not crammed into that telephone. The telephone, just like your brain, is a transceiver. And when you watch Oprah on TV, she's not squished into that little TV. She's an electromagnetic wave, and the TV is simply processing that signal. And when you listen to the Rolling Stones on the radio, they're not squished into that little radio. Then when they're done playing the song, they run to your neighbors and play the same song for them. No, it's like all of those things exist outside that device, like your consciousness lives outside your brain, and the brain is merely a processor. And so you are actually consciousness. You're electromagnetic energy, and more powerful and enduring and underestimated than you can even imagine. You are the boss, which makes your body is just a jacket. Your body is described by cardiologists as a jacket. Now here's a little case I want to talk to you about, this near-death experience, to illustrate what we're talking about. Pam Reynolds is a songwriter living in Atlanta, Georgia, She began experiencing these physical difficulties with speech and balance and so forth, and she went to her doctor, who suggested she go to. He suspected there was a brain aneurysm, and she would have to go to Phoenix to have surgery done, and a very rare type of surgery. It was very risky. And the aneurysm was about to burst. Here she is in surgery. And here's a close-up of her surgery. And I want to talk a little bit about what she went through and why this is such an interesting case to these near-death researchers. Before entering the operating room, she had been anesthetized, her eyes were taped shut, and her ears were plugged. Notice those yellow plugs inside her ear. They're in both ears. And those plugs emit an electronic noise like tick, 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 tick. And the purpose of that ticking is to ensure if her brain is still active, then she's still alive. And they needed her to be brain dead to conduct this surgery. They're going to cut open her skull and remove half of her brain because the aneurysm was solidly in the center of her brain. They were going to take her brain apart. So the other thing was they had to drain the body, the body from any blood from her body, particularly from her brain. There had to be no brainstem activity. There had to be in flat EEG. She was clinically dead, intentionally dead for this surgery to take place. It's very harsh medical conditions confirming death. And yet here's what happened. After her surgery, she woke up to tell the surgery team what had happened. She described the instruments being used. She described all of the steps in the procedure. She described this one problem that they encountered. The nurse said, "Uh-oh, we've got a problem." And the nurse described a problem with one of the veins. And Pam was wondering, well, why are they down there working? This is supposed to be brain surgery. I don't understand this. And the nurse said that the blood vessels were too small. They had to go operate on the other leg to drain the blood. She recalled and told these people about specific conversations. She thought it was inappropriate for the operating team to be playing music in the background, and she recalled that Hotel California was playing. So the point here is that she was engaging in this self-talk throughout this whole surgery. The surgeon in this case is one of the top 5 neurosurgeons in the world, Dr. Robert Spessler. And about this situation, he said consciousness was inconceivable in this situation unless the mind truly does exist apart from the body. There's no other explanation. A completely amazing case. And again, you can watch that video on TV. I have a little experiment for you now to help you understand how the brain and body, or the brain and mind, operate separately. Now you see a flag here, an odd color. What I want you to do for a moment, I want you to stare intently at this white dot. Forget the flag for the moment. I'm going to remove that from the screen in just a moment. I want you to stare at that white dot. I want you to recognize just how perfectly circular it is, that white dot. Or actually, is it sort of flat on one side? I want you to notice the shadow beneath that white dot. Or is it to the right or left? Or in fact, have you started to notice how the white dot seems to kind of bounce, like a bouncing ball slightly? Okay, now I want you to watch what happened when I remove the flag. Did you see it? If it worked for you, and it does for the majority of people, what you see is the red, white, and blue. And it's not there. The red, white, and blue is not there. Now, let me explain how this works. Your mind was distracted intentionally by me by the white dot, okay? And then as your mind is being distracted, the brain takes over, okay? And it takes the suggestion of the flag and it forms an expectation. It knows the flag's red, white, and blue. So the brain enables you to see a false reality. It's making your life a little easier for you, okay? But now, like the fading memories of your dream. Those imagined colors suddenly fade away, slowly fade away, as your mind starts to regain control of your thinking or your consciousness. Okay? Just like dreams disappear. Those colors disappear because your mind is taking over from the brain and resuming thinking. Now here's the point. If you allow your brain to do the thinking during the day and create some of these false realities like, they won't like me, I'll never get that job, I shouldn't go to that networking event, that's not going to help me get a job, and you start engaging in these self-limiting beliefs that are false realities, what happens? You inhibit your own self-motivation and destroy your own performance potential. And that's what happens amongst many of us without us even realizing that that's happened. It happens all the time when you become convinced that what you're seeing and what you're thinking is real. And it may not be real. It just may be your brain trying to make life simple for you when in fact it's making life, in some cases, much more difficult. So it's when you believe that happens. Now, who do you think this is? Now watch carefully when I turn this around. Of course, you're thinking, okay, that's Abe Lincoln. And it is. But look how distorted his photo is. Again, your brain, it's telling you, it's trying to think for you automatically and tell you who this is so that you don't have to work so hard to figure it out. So when you look at this, you think, oh yeah, that's Abe. That's Abe. But then when you turn it around, you don't realize that that's distorted. That's an actual picture, a distorted picture of Lincoln. But that's how your mind works separately from your brain. Now, these people who've experienced these near-death experiences say, for years and decades after their near-death experience, they say that experience created profound changes in their life to the point that they're no longer afraid of death. Here's what they say, some of the highlights from the research. They say they come back from that experience realizing life is short. And yes, life is painful. Some of these people, they say they'd rather not come back from that experience. But they realize they come back for a purpose. We all have a purpose. We're here to learn. We're here to cultivate our ability to love one another. Then, when when that jacket wears out and we die, our spirit lives on and as electromagnetic energy, and then we reconnect supposedly with universal energy. And here's what they tell us. They say, yeah, life is hard. Being jobless is hard. Being rejected is not fun. But if life were easy, there'd be no point to our being here on earth. We would not learn, and we couldn't appreciate what an eternity of ease was like. And I like this quote because it helps me during these tough times, and it helps my coaching clients. When the heart weeps for what it has lost, the spirit laughs at what it has gained in that experience. The spirit is here to learn. And although our body and our hearts don't like what we have to go through, our spirit leaps with joy, as enlivened with some of this new learning experience. Why in the world is talking about near-death experience research important to your will to survive? Here's the answer. It helps us to put things in perspective. It does, in fact, enliven our spirit to realize we're not annihilated at the time of death. We potentially live on. This reinvigorates our hope, our optimism and resilience to persevere and to perform well despite our difficult circumstances that we don't like but are necessary for our cultivation. So I ask my coaching clients, I ask our trainees and our workshop attendees, what if you really are non-local? You're just a short-term student here on earth. How does this affect how you might view your everyday challenges? Putting it all in perspective. Challenges that are meant for your cultivation. And so the question is, how would you survive? How would you survive if you began looking at these difficult circumstances a little bit differently? Here's some questions. Should you be looking at life on a short-term basis or long-term basis? How would you look at it? Would you complain, or would you look at this situation as a learning event? Would you learn to hate, or would you learn to love? Would you retaliate for somebody doing something to you, or would you forgive? Would you doubt, or would you have faith while here? Would you allow yourself to experience anxiety, or would you learn to trust? Would you seek satisfaction, or would you be okay with contentment? What's more important, the battle of the war? Now, these near-death experiencers, what they say, all these things here on the right-hand column, of course, are most important for our cultivation. But they also say this: it's a constant battle. There are times in our life where we can't help but focus on the short term. If you were like I was, living on that left column of the paper I did earlier, where you were fearful and worried and doubtful and afraid, and you needed money to pay bills and put food on the table, of course, you're going to be focused on the short term and doubt and anxiety and wanting satisfaction. Your mind is focused on the battle. But that's how we learning to struggle through these things. And I like to use the old Cherokee story to help illustrate this. The Cherokee chief was talking to his son. He says, the battle here on earth is within us. It's between two wolves that reside inside of us. He says the one wolf of evil, it's anger, it's envy, sorrow, regret, greed, inferiority, lies, pride, ego, superiority, all of these not so good things we're dealing with on a daily basis. The other wolf is the good wolf. It seeks joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, generosity, truth, compassion, and lives by faith. And the little Indian boy, he says, who wins? And the chief wisely says, the one you feed. The one you feed, meaning that our reality, our good or bad reality, is created by how we think, our mindset. And nobody controls what you think but you. That's our free will. We can think what we want without realizing we can create as close to heaven on earth as possible. Or if we allow ourselves to think negatively or automatically, we can unknowingly create a living hell on earth. So the idea, of course, is to learn how to feed the good wolf. Let me bring this down to a little closer to earth now, and with some things that you're more familiar with, I think. Everybody's heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and here it is on the right. Maslow really didn't refer to this as his hierarchy of needs. He calls it his deficiency motivators. And so if you're wondering why you go through life every day thinking, why can't I be happy? How come they have a job and I don't? How come my neighbor has a new Cadillac and I'm driving a beater? How come they get to take their kids to Disney World and I haven't been on vacation in 2 years? Why? Why are we always looking at what's going wrong? What's broke? What's not going right? Maslow said it's because we live with brain thinking, which gives us a deficiency mindset. He says, if these needs on the right here are not fulfilled, we can't achieve self-actualization. And all of this changed in 1971, just before Maslow died. He created a new level to his pyramid, and people forgot to tell us. The new level he created was self-transcendent. He says, if you learn how to turn off that brain, like we showed you earlier with the flag exercise, if you learn to turn off that brain and think more frequently with your mind, he says you can still achieve self-actualization and by learning to think with your mind, to persevere and perform well despite all of these unmet needs. He called that self-transcendence, the ability to rise above your deficit circumstances. And so here we have what Maslow gave us before he died is what he called his meta-motivators. Here's his old pyramid down on the left. You see just the top of it. And all of those needs are still very important. But here's what he says. He says your brain and body are propelled by your mind, your thoughts, and your spirit, your emotions, which are fuel and energy for us. And here's what he gave us, his meta motivators. He said, these are what turn us on. This is what our spirit is aspiring to achieve while we're here. And all of these are meaningful to some of us. This is what we're really aspiring to achieve. And you'll notice a lot of these are like those good wolf characteristics. He says, this is what our spirit is striving for. But here's the question. What happens when you encounter barriers or delays to achieving those meta motivators? You can't get it. You're jobless. You just got rejected. You can't seem to figure out what you want to do when you grow up. You know, what happens when you encounter these deficiencies? And researchers tell us we have 3 coping strategies that we rely on. Our ability to cope well depends first and foremost on the power to control our circumstances. But I ask you, how many of you can control the economy, the difficult job market, employers, interviewers, rejections, and so forth? And so that's a problem. So if our coping is dependent on that, it's not going to work. So we have a backup. Our ability to cope well depends on our mindset to control our reactions to the circumstances we can't control by controlling our mindset. So now here are the 3 coping strategies. Problem-focused, emotion-focused, and meaning-focused. Let me talk about the first 2 because those are the ones you and I grew up with. The meaning-focused is relatively brand new. The problem-focused is change your situation. If drinking causes a problem, stop drinking. If smoking causes a problem, stop smoking. What we learn here is that to change our situation, we plan, problem solve, we set boundaries, we assert our opinions, and we get help when we need help. And this works, provided we have the power to change our situation. And if we don't, and we try to do it, we become very frustrated and discouraged, which is happening all across the United States right now. Discouraged, job search, discouragement, and apathy. The next coping strategy is change your feelings. This one's a little bit more difficult to explain, but if you keep getting emails you don't want, reminding you to pay a bill, what do? If you don't have the money right away, you ignore it. You just turn your back on that email and get yourself busy with something else. You change your feelings. What you do is you deny the problem, you avoid, you procrastinate, you distract yourself with sex, drugs, and rock and roll or whatever, or wishful thinking, or even prayer, until eventually you come to accept that the reality. And what the scientists tell us is that this is perhaps the least effective means of coping. You know, it's not bad if this is the only thing we have, but it is the least effective. What happens is we're numbing ourselves, okay? We're numbing our emotions. But what happens after a while of numbing your emotions, when you come back to reality, the problems a lot of times are even more worse. Now we come to the third coping strategy, which is brand new, which is how to change how you think, which emanates from this science of the mind. Starting in 1990 to the year 2000, George Bush Sr. called that the decade of the brain. That's when we saw the introduction of new medical scanning technology that was used to facilitate behavioral research and performance psychology research. That led to this whole idea of science of the mind and the benefits of changing how you think. And what we do is we learn how to think non-negatively, assign better meanings to our circumstances, which we can control. We learn to recognize what's important while we're here on earth trying to survive. We learn to let go of hopeless goals, replace them with more realistic goals, and reprioritize our efforts. We improve how we think. And now these scientists are saying it looks as though, well, we need more research, but right now it looks as this has the optimum means of helping us and improving our long-term health. Our best coping strategy is to improve how we think, which is the basis of all of this mindset training we're putting people through. And so look what's been happening. We've been acting without thinking. We've been leading with our emotions without thinking first. Okay, that's been our problem. Acting without thinking or leading with our emotions, which create problems. And so now watch, I'm going to switch this all around. I'm going to put meaning to the top. And this is what we're teaching people. Number one, as you confront your difficulties, number one, change how you think. Develop your best mindset and use it to create the best emotions to act upon so as to improve your performance, results, and impressions. And that's all we're doing. We're using the new science of the mind and teaching people how to persevere and perform well despite circumstances they can't control. And it's working. We're seeing good results of this. What we're doing, we're teaching people how to enliven their spirits so their bodies can soar during these tough times. Here's what the research said. Common to all people, all ages, all denominations, all races, all people, there are four things. The first one, we are propelled by the emotions we create by how we think. Now that may seem fairly simple, and we've heard it before, but I can't tell you how many people don't get it, don't really get it. Here's what it means. It means we act in response to emotions caused by how we think. Now what that means is emotions propel us, okay? And those emotions are not created by our being jobless, the economy, by the Obama administration, by a rejection, by uncaring recruiters, slow and indecisive. Our emotions are created only by how we think about those things. In and of themselves, those events or other people do not create human emotions, not until we think about them. And so here's what this means. It means each of us are like little self-contained power plants. We energize our best performance by how we think. And so our thoughts are actually fuel. And we know now that the mind, where those thoughts originate, are non-local. They exist outside the body and direct the body in what we want to achieve. Our thoughts are the fuel that energizes our performance, results, and impressions. Here's what this means. And it's the second thing common to all people. Our potential while here on earth, it isn't determined by circumstances we can't control, being jobless or other things, but by our success is determined by our thoughts, which we do control. Now, if there's anybody watching this that says other people control what you think, then you're wrong. No one controls what you think but you, okay? And so here's the third thing common to all people, which gets us into problems. We allow our thoughts to happen automatically, or we think negatively about our circumstances. Then we blame other people for how we cause ourselves to feel and our poor performance. And we don't even know we're doing this. We innocently bring ourselves down. We innocently short-circuit our best performance, results, and impressions without even realizing we're doing it. We look to blame other people for how we've caused ourselves to feel. Remember, those feelings, those emotions are not caused by circumstances, but by what we think about them. And that brings up the fourth point, common to all people. We have the option to prevent these problems by simply improving how we think, our mindset. And this is where, during the workshops, I always ask people to repeat after me. I say, I'm powerful. And we really are. When we stop to realize we are these self-contained power plants, we really do have control over how well we feel and perform, regardless of what our circumstances may be. So, self-empowered success despite circumstances means this. Our mind decides to turn the key with whatever we'd like to achieve. Get a job, change a relationship, whatever we'd like to achieve. Our mind decides to turn the key, and it's our brain that simply facilitates what we want to do. It's a transceiver that facilitates what we want it to do. Now, that memory stick that you see here, it's useless unless you've programmed it with what you'd like to achieve. It's useless. It's like that empty telephone. It's that empty TV that's unplugged. It's like that radio that's unplugged. It's your mind that determines it. And so I ask people to repeat this. Repeat it with me. By regulating how I think, my mindset, I can experience any emotion I choose without regard to what my actual circumstances may be. I want you to write that down. By regulating how I think, my mindset, I can experience any emotion I choose without regard to my circumstances. Now, here's the question. And I want you to think about this as the timer winds down. What's this mean? Without regard to my circumstances. You can experience any emotion you choose without regard to your circumstances. What does that mean? I'll tell you a story. If some of you are afraid of the dark, and you have to go down in the basement and you turn the light switch on and the light doesn't go on and you know you need to replace a bulb and you don't happen to have a flashlight, what you do is you create the emotion of courage to help you go down there despite the darkness. Okay? You might have the jitters, but you go down, you take that bulb out and you place it and you go back up. There's nothing to be afraid of. You mustered the emotion of courage by regulating what you think. Now, here's what it means to the jobless. It means experiencing any emotion without regard to yourself. It means you don't need a job to feel like you have a job. And that means you can conduct your search with the same emotions you expect to have after you get a job. Conduct your search as if you already have your job. How are you going to feel? That's an emotion. Feel it now. Feel it every day. Feel it the moment you wake up. Feel it the moment before you go to sleep. If you have power over what you think to create that emotion, which you do, this is feasible. No excuses unless you like to whine and complain and blame others for how you caused yourself to feel. That's what we're trying to do, is to increase that recognition of responsibility and self-sufficiency. Here's what the research says. The research says that we do not act in direct response to our good or bad circumstances, whatever, even the death of a loved one. I've done this workshop where people had recently deceased spouses, and they told me afterwards this really, really helped them. We don't act in direct response to our circumstances, but in response to our emotions caused by how you think about your circumstances. So what does this mean? It means whatever your circumstances may be, they are always secondary or subject to your thoughts about them. You do not live in the shadow of your circumstances. Your circumstances are in the shadows of what you choose to think about them. So here's how we function. Something happens out there in our world. Okay? We see it, we hear it, we experience it, and then we think about it. So now here's the question. There's the timer. Which of these is always optional? That you can see it or hear it? That you can experience it? Or that you can think about it? Which is always optional? And the answer is your thoughts are always optional. Always. Here's how that works. You might be sitting at a traffic light, for example, and you're looking around and it's a peaceful day, it's a sunny day, and you're thinking, gee, I've never been to this part of town. I might like to live here someday. And then boom, 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 boom. A car pulls up to you. It's one of these boombox cars, and your heart starts vibrating in your chest. And you think, what in goodness name is this guy doing? Why does he have to ruin my day? Why is he entertaining the whole neighborhood? Turn it down. Okay, you had no control over what just happened there other than what you think about that thing. You might be driving down the street and you're doing your best to avoid an accident, and then boom, somebody hits you. It's not your intention to go out and get into an accident. You have no control over when that happens, always, but you do have control over what you think about that situation, always. Now here's the question. Why is this important? Why is it so important that your ability to think about your circumstances remains constant? And here's the answer. That ability to control what you think allows you to self-regulate that fuel and energy to help you persevere and perform well despite the down economy, being jobless, a recent rejection, or whatever is going on in your life. It enables you to persevere and perform well. And what that tells us is that your spirit, that electromagnetic energy, were sent to earth here, came here, equipped for success, no matter what your circumstances are, so that you can learn and benefit and cultivate from whatever experience comes your way. That's why that's so very important. So, the theory here. The theory is, the real you is separate from your body, and earth is just a learning phase, right? The reality is, we know from research, is that you can use your mind to control your reactions to the circumstances you can't control. That enables your survivability. And the theory is, well, if life were easy, you wouldn't learn or appreciate an eternity of perfection or ease. The reality is, from research, that you can change how you think to improve how you feel and how well you perform, and literally, as Maslow says, transcend or rise above your circumstances and still achieve self-actualization despite your deficit circumstances. But you got to turn off your brain, and turn on thinking with your mind. Theory says, well, the battle is from within. The bad wolf tendency to ruminate about your circumstances, which we all do. But the research says you can experience any emotion you choose without regard to whatever your circumstances may be. And you do that by improving how you think, your mindset. You have the free will and excuse control to do that. And that's the foundation to your survivability. Research on the area of happiness says that the happy wolf, here's the guidelines. Don't hate, stop worrying, live simply, give more. Yeah, right. Get real. They rejected me. This is how we tend to think. I can't pay the bills. I got nothing to give. I deserve better than this. But we again, it doesn't help us to let our brains run free with this kind of thinking. That's not why we're here. Even if these things are true, don't feed the bad wolf. Don't lose the war. You got to live to learn. Like this guy here, keep smiling. After all, what's real? What is real anyway? Is life a university? Is Earth a university and we're just here to cultivate? I don't know. But again, that's what helps me get through the day. It gets through the night. And here's some advice we give to people during this training to help them get through their day, get them through the sleepless nights. If we are here to learn, what's the best way for me to approach this circumstance? How can I learn from this? How am I supposed to learn from this? What new meanings can I assign to this horrible situation? How can I make myself feel better about this? What good can I get from this? And notice here, what we're teaching people is don't ask those why questions, which throw you back in time and cause you to ruminate. Keep your mind forward, focused on what, how, when. Questions that take you forward and keep your spirit enlivened so your body can soar. And you guys, I know you guys hear this like I do every day. I hear this every day from all my coaching clients and trainees. Yeah, but improving how you think, changing how you think is easier said than done. How do I do that? And here's what they're really saying, which really breaks my heart. They're saying, how can I think non-negatively, Jeff, about not having a job, being rejected, being treated discourteously, and running out of money? How do I think non-negatively about those things? And the coaching question is this. How does thinking negatively help you? How does it help you find jobs faster? How does it help you cultivate? How does it help you turn off? It doesn't. It doesn't. And remember, you're equipped to improve how you think. In doing so, It's easy when you got a good reason. And I always give this example. Let's say I'm holding and I'm standing before you and I've got a $5 bill. And I'll tell each of you, if you go out in the parking lot and allow me to run my SUV over your toes, I'll give each of this $5 bill. Anybody that wants to do that, I'll give you this $5 bill. I doubt very seriously that any of you would want to do that. So here's the next question. What if no strings are attached? I won't run over your toes or anything. I'll just give you this $5 bill if you ask for it. Now, I bet most of you would say, okay, if there's no strings attached, I'll take my $5 bill. Now, what did you just do? You just changed how you think in the blink of an eye. You just change how you think in the blink of an eye, just like that. Without even, sometimes some of you didn't realize you even changed how you think. That's how easy it is to change how you think when you have a good reason. Now, we're going to sort of switch gears here, and the rest of this presentation talks about a good reason for job hunters to change how they think. Without the right mindset to succeed despite their circumstances, they're not going to get hired. Employers won't want to hire them if they got the wrong mindset to succeed. Here's what's happening. I want you to think about this. After people have been trained and retrained, why are there millions of people still unemployed and underemployed at a time when we know conclusively that people are needed in engineering, automotive, transportation? All of these industries are in need of people right now. Why are these people, so many million, close to 19 million people, if you include the underemployed and people who've stopped looking? Why are they not qualified? Where's their enlivened spirit? Here's another thing I want you to think about. Why, according to Gallup, are 71% of existing workers who have jobs, why are they so unhappy? Why are they disengaged and unproductive? Existing workers. Aren't they supposed to feel fortunate to have a job in this economy? And they can at least avoid the financial hardship and not having medical benefits and dealing with discouragement and depression. Why are these workers not engaged? Where is their enlivened spirit? Okay? And here's what employers are saying. Why are workers not being trained to persevere and perform well? Whoa. Where are the skills we need for people to succeed in the new economy? And this is what employers are telling us. We got research from this in UCLA. Why would we even hire the jobless when they clearly lack the mindset to succeed despite their circumstances? They've stopped looking. They're filing mental disability claims. If productivity is an issue, why would we hire them? These people are just as discouraged and potentially unproductive as the discouraged people we have on board already. They are unqualified, and the research says employers believe they deserve to be jobless. They are that biased against the jobless that employers believe that they deserve to be unemployed. Wow. Here's what I was told as a staffing manager. My boss told me, he said, "Hey Jeff, we don't need you recruiting the unemployed. They're climbing in the windows. We can't get rid of them. They're beating down the doors. Your team, we don't need you recruiting the unemployed. If you're out there hiring the unemployed, we can do that ourselves. We can eliminate your job and save the company some headcount. What we want you to do, Jeff," and this is what I told my staff as well, "we want you out there looking for ninja superstar water walkers with entrepreneurial spirit and fire in the belly." Staffing speak, here's what that means. We're looking for people who are employed or short-term unemployed, but always necessarily with the mental skills to persevere and perform well despite any work conditions that we can't make satisfying. Wow, that's what's happening. So for the employer's point of view, here's how they look at what's going on. This is what I complained about for 2 decades as the head of staffing. We do a good job developing people's skills, developing those skills that determine who gets considered. their occupational skills, their job search skills, and their ability to self-promote themselves, their elevator speech and all that stuff. But where we fall short is in developing skills that determines who should be hired, promoted, and retained from our perspective. And what they're saying is the mindset skills, their attitude and personality. Now, both of these skill sets are important, but employers don't hire people for their ability to find jobs. We hire them for their ability to perform jobs. And so employers are asking, can you, will you persevere and perform well? And if you can't, then there's no business justification to hire you. And it really doesn't make a darn bit of difference if you've got a degree from Harvard, the best written resume on earth, and if you have dressed for success. We don't care. If you can't sell Philip Morris cigarettes, Oscar Mayer hot dogs, or Miller Lite beer, we don't want you. If you can't persevere and perform well. Now here's what happens. When job hunters run into problems, what we do is we continue to reinforce their occupational, job search, and self-promotion skills. And unfortunately, what goes unchanged or receives only minimal attention is their mental skills. And as a result, people are qualified for consideration, but they are not qualified for hire. And this is why millions of people have stopped looking, why millions have filed over $200 billion in mental disability claims, and why employers are biased against hiring the jobless. They lack the right training. Here's how it works. Employment is by invitation only. Good job search skills will help get your foot in the door. Okay? Good occupational skills will help you survive that second to cut, and they're very important. But then, after that point, you enter what we recruiters call the no-spin zone. Okay? And at that point, the people who make it to that bucket, by the time they make it to that bucket, everyone's occupational skills are nearly equal. So we're not as concerned. We can relax and cherry pick who we want. And at that point, we're not even concerned about their job search skills. We're more concerned about whether or not we can further develop them and retain them. And from among that bucket, the best qualified, we don't even always hire the best of the best from that. At least on paper, who we hire, and I think you know the answer, we hire who we like most. And I think Betty White is a perfect poster child for what I'm talking about here. Likability. A person's likability may not have anything to do with their occupational or job search skills, but it has everything to do with their mindset to persevere and perform well. That's what we call right fit in chemistry, and it works like this. I'm not sure if any of you are recruiters, but BWF is a technical recruiting term. I'll explain it in just a moment. But it works like this. From the employer point of view, mindset to perform well is first and foremost the priority. Next are your occupational skills, followed by your job search skills. And we will, if we think your mindset skills are strong, we'll hire you across the board, even if your occupational skills or job search skills are weak, even if you haven't got a degree from Harvard or haven't updated your resume. And we'll even tell you, we're hiring you because we think you can do the job. Even though you didn't update your resume, you didn't complete your degree or didn't go to the right school, we still believe in you. We think you can do it. And BWF, that's the Betty White factor. We like you. We want you. We need you. You have the right mindset. Here's what happens when they lack the right mindset. If you lack that right mindset or it's weak, we will reject you across the board, even if you've got the best job skills, even if you got a degree from Harvard, even if you've updated your resume or have a video resume or done your best. But we won't tell you we're rejecting you because of your lack of mindset skills. We'll make up something related to your occupational job search skills. And then we'll tell you we found someone better qualified. All right, that's how it works. And unfortunately, we're not forthright with job seekers about the importance of their mindset skills because employers are afraid of getting sued. They can't explain what this right fit in chemistry is, but that's what's happening, and I believe you would agree with me. This idea of mental skills training. It's excluded, unfortunately, and this is why I'm on a campaign to change this. I am expanding the scope and content of job search skills to include mental skills training with the Job Seeker Success Mindset Training course. Why is this excluded from the curriculum? It's because career educators assume that mental skills training is reserved exclusively to the hard cases. Okay, the disadvantaged, the disabled, the discouraged, the people who are too old, the people who are the hard cases. Okay, they're the only ones, so I'm not going to waste my time giving this training to everybody. Here's the reality today. Everyone is struggling. Even, as the Gallup report indicates, even the people who have jobs are struggling due to the physical, emotional, and financial strain posed by the second worst job market and economy in U.S. history. We're all struggling. And so what we're saying here, there is a deficit in mental skills training. People lack the coping skills, that meaning coping, the change how you think. And what employers are looking for is this. They're looking for that mental toughness. They're looking for people who can accomplish more with less, who have all of these high-performing capabilities, but they realize it's missing, obviously, among the unemployed. Those people are qualified for consideration, no doubt about it, but from the employer's point of view, they are not qualified for hire. And that's what we see happening. And the sad thing is, we've known this for over 100 years. This is William James, the father of, the so-called father of modern psychology. He says, the greatest discovery of my generation is a human can alter his life by altering. 100 years ago he said this. And here's what he told us. Thoughts fuel emotions. Emotions urge action. Actions yield results. And results are what form impressions. Here's what he's saying. That Ninja Superstar Water Walker impression isn't created by your resume or waxed on image or your interview skills. It's created by your mindset, mental skills, or attitude for which training is not being routinely provided. And yes, I get very excited about this because I'm very passionate about this. This is what I learned, 30 years in staffing. This is what my research discovered. This is what the state of Illinois calls the missing piece of the job search training puzzle. Here's what's happening. So many of these job seekers, after going through all of this training, polishing their image, going through they're saying, I've tried everything. It's not working. I don't know what to do. After 5 months of searching, they become even more undesirable and they decide to stop looking, thinking maybe someday the job market will improve and I'll start all over. The issue is this. Employers are not looking at that waxed on image. They're looking beneath that image at a person's mental skills to persevere and perform well. And that's the whole idea of this introduction of behavioral interviewing and why so many employers are now embracing it. They want more people who can accomplish more with less. And so what we're providing these people is insufficient for the new economy. Here's what the research tells us. That job seekers who function with the right mindset, that enlivened spirit, not only do they find jobs with greater ease, they are among the first people who are promoted sooner. And what the research says, they're perceived as more optimistic, more likable. They're perceived as having better coping skills, which we've talked about. And here's an interesting thing. Even if they're not optimistic, appearing to be so, it can improve their perceptions of them. It's perceived as they're having better performance capabilities. They are expecting good things. Here's what the research says about the people who function with the wrong mindset, the people who develop that job search apathy and discouragement. As their job search continues unsuccessfully, what happens? They start to sleep later. They watch more TV during the day. They experience more sadness and greater depression. They become discouraged, as I said, and within 5 months they stop looking. Their mindset is wrapped around imagining the worst. Just like me. Remember I showed you at the beginning of this presentation on that so-called flip chart, all of those bad emotions on the left. I was living with fear, worry, doubt, anger, shame. I was headed to the poorhouse. I was letting my new business go, sink. And what changed was my mindset, thinking I had money I didn't have. All I did was improve how I think. So if we know these things are bad, why do we do it? Why do we engage in this negative thinking like this bad wolf here? Here's the equivalent. Why do we engage in this negative thinking without realizing the physiological and psychological damage that it's doing to us? It's like we're shooting ourselves in the foot. Here's the explanation, and it's so obvious. First of all, we know shooting ourselves, if we pull the trigger, there's going to be a hole in our foot and a bunch of blood on the floor, okay? The danger is immediately apparent, okay? We see the cause and effect. The problem with thinking, even though it's just as dangerous, we don't see the cause and effect. We don't see the danger is not immediately apparent to what one thought can cause. But here's what the research says. Just one negative thought and associating with negative people can prolong a job search by up to 2 months. And we know that the average person processes close to 60,000 thoughts a day, and the majority of those, close to 90%, are less than favorable. So the question is, what's the solution to solving these problems that lead to prolonged unemployment? What's the solution? And here's what the psychiatrists tell us. And during workshops, this always gets a chuckle. And then I explain what psychiatrists tell us is that drugs and alcohol are not the problems in our society. They are the solutions people have found to fixing the problems caused by our bad thinking skills. And what they say is insanity is the chronic and innocent misuse of thoughts. The wrong thinking leads to doubt, to self-limiting beliefs, self-sabotaging behaviors like procrastination. And we do it ourselves because our thoughts create emotions and we don't realize this. We blame other people for how we cause ourselves to feel. Now it's time for your survival exam, which concludes this presentation. The first question is this, and you will give the answer. Here's the timer again. What happens, write your answer down, what happens when your mind and spirit are not meta-motivated, using Maslow's terms, or you lack the fuel and energy to energize your best efforts? What happens when you conduct your job search and your mind is not meta-motivated? Here's the answer. What happens is your brain takes over. Remember the flag, the dot and the flag? Your brain takes over thinking about your lacks, or what Maslow called his deficiency mindset. And then what happens is you start blaming others for how you cause yourself to feel, which brings about the bad wolf characteristics. And then doing even simple things becomes a strain, or you procrastinate. And again, we don't even realize we're doing this. We don't even realize it's a result of how we think. Question number 2. What if the interviewer says or implies, and this is texting speak, and I'll help you out. It means the interviewer says you're too old, you're too young, your job is too long, you're the wrong fit in chemistry. Here's the timer. What do you do? What do you say if this is what the interviewer says to you during the interview? You're too old. You're too young. You've been jobless too long. You're the wrong fit in chemistry. And the answer is, you say, your ass. Now, I'm not a potty mouth. Let me explain what this means. Remember we said ninja, superstar, water walker. Here's what that means. Your ass means you're a superstar. If you're a ninja, water walker, you don't go into an interview unprepared. You have a mindset, you have an opinion, you have a way of thinking already figured out related to any of these things. And then whatever happens, you learn to assign the best meanings to it, thereby creating the best reactions and enabling your survivability. So I ask you, here's a model to keep in mind. What's your primary job? Survive. What do you not control in this? You don't control what the interviewer says, thinks, or does. The only thing you control always is what you think, the meaning you assign to that. That's what you do. You control your reaction, which enables your survivability. You're the boss. You're the boss of your thoughts. That non-local you. And that enables you to self-regulate your reactions and to succeed or survive despite your circumstances. So now to summarize. Mindset. Your mindset is the key to your survival. And it'll help you, and your challenges that you confront help you to come to realize that. So take away life's a lesson. We live to learn. And yeah, it's not easy. But the battle is within. The battle is always within. And we cultivate. We learn to meta-motivate ourselves. Remember what Maslow said. We learn to meta-motivate ourselves, and then we move on. We transcend. We rise above our circumstances. We survive. And do we do this? How do we do this? I like following the advice of those 300 job seekers who said the job found them when they were ready. They said, they knew what they desired. They believed they would get it. They managed against doubts. And then suddenly other people started helping them, which gets back to the statistics we know about staffing. 75 to 90% of all jobs are filled as a result of networking, people helping people. And that's how it works. That's mindset training. That's mindset training. And I've just described the next generation of job readiness training, which is essential for success and survivability in the new economy. I'd like to do this workshop for you folks. Give me a call. I'd like to tell you about the training and also make it possible for you to get it. Like I said, it costs less per year for your entire state and all your workforce partners. It's less than what you pay one person in unemployment benefits. Give me a call. The number is 847-607-8854, and here also is my email. Thank you very much.